Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I am Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, January 14th. Today, it's Robert Saleh here in Jacksonville. He is interviewing with the Jaguars for their head coaching vacancy. Former New York Jets head coach, former Jaguars linebackers coach. He has been around. He's been a defensive coordinator. He's had a lot of success as a defensive coach. There's no question about that. We're going to talk about his head coaching candidacy today and talk about the Jaguars coaching opening as a whole as well. And so the Jaguars, they've already met with the Lions coordinators, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, two of the very top names during this coaching search throughout the league, right? Obviously, Mike Vrabel has already been hired by the Patriots, so that's one domino down. But yeah, they already met with Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson from Detroit. They met with Steve Spagnuolo, the Kansas City Chiefs defensive coordinator, former Rams head coach, who obviously one of the legendary defensive coordinators in football. They met with Patrick Graham, who is also a very, very good, well-respected defensive coordinator from the Las Vegas Raiders, and a guy who his contract expired as the defensive coordinator with the Raiders, so he was free to meet with some teams. I would imagine Liam Cohen probably this week. That they requested Liam Cohen for an interview, and I would imagine that would probably happen. If it's not, I would think that would happen this week. The Buccaneers were eliminated from the playoffs by the Commanders. Close football game. Bucs dealt with a lot of injuries this year. But again, Robert Saleh, he is the man of the hour in Jacksonville today. And so we're going to talk about that. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe here. It helps us out a ton. A lot of people are watching and not subscribing. So please, if you could, go ahead and subscribe. And I'd also like to let y'all know we have a little bit of a winter sale going on over on the website today, genjag.com/shop. 50% off everything. Hats, t-shirts, all the good stuff. 50% off everything with code Duval. That's DUUUVAL. 3 U's there. Code Duval for 50% off everything on genjag.com, including the hat I'm wearing right now. Go pick it up. Check it out. Support what we're doing. Need to get rid of a little inventory here. So, Robert Saleh, as a head coach for the New York Jets, 20-36. Obviously, that's not a very impressive record. When you look at what really transpired there, horrible first year in 2021, 4-13. They didn't have a great quarterback situation. 2022, 2023, didn't have a great quarterback situation, right? You're dealing with Zach Wilson, you're dealing with Mike White in 2022. And then in 2023, you sign Aaron Rodgers and he goes down in the very first game on the very first drive. And you're caught with your tail between your legs a little bit as a New York Jets franchise. He always had a good defense. And I think, towards the end of 2023, it was just like, what are we even doing here for some of these defensive guys? But it gets frustrated banging your head against the wall, competing your tail off, and the offense just can't do anything, right? But I think Robert Saleh always did a good job with their defense, and he always did a good job with the 49ers defense. I mean, he and DeMeco Ryans are the ones that got away in San Francisco. Everybody else, defensive coordinator-wise, there's been highs, there's been lows, there's been ups and downs. I think Saleh is a fantastic defensive coach. There's no question about that. Is he a good leader? I think there's arguments on both sides, but overall, I would say yes, I do think he is a good leader. He's hardworking, disciplined. He can lead by example. There's no question about that. I also think he can be a little bit more rah-rah than somebody like a Doug Peterson. He's 45 years old. He's in pretty darn good shape. So I think that, he kind of looks like he could go out there on the field and take some hits right now, deliver some hits. But as a 45-year-old, I think that he has a little more empathy and relatability to some of the younger guys coming in the league right now, just based on what I know, and certainly more than some of the older heads. Doug Peterson's by no means an old man, but in this coaching world, he's not a young buck anymore, right? So I think that probably relatability to the younger generation, Robert Saleh would probably be a step in the right direction for the Jaguars. I think that was lacking under Doug Peterson. And let's be real here. Like, Robert Saleh was put in some horrible situations in New York. They did have defensive talent. He also made the most of their defensive talent in a lot of situations, like getting really, really stellar play out of guys that weren't necessarily the belle of the ball in their previous stop, or guys that weren't necessarily super expensive football players. I mean, just look at Quincy Williams. Jaguars draft him in the third round. New regime comes in, they cut him, and all he's done there has been a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber linebacker, right? There's plenty of examples of guys just playing their butts off and playing really well in a Robert Saleh defense. And he was put in some horrible situations in New York. And Woody Johnson is a horrible owner, the Jets owner. And I think that puts anybody who's taking that job at a disadvantage. It certainly did for Robert Saleh, who, I mean, he was fired when they started out 2-3 this year. That made zero sense. Literally, that made zero sense. I don't know how you justify that at all. I don't get it. So you talk about, well, the offense struggled when he was there as the head coach. Again, defense is his thing, but as a head coach, you're responsible for all of it, right? Did he slam the table for Zach Wilson? I don't know. Does it even matter? I don't think it does. Like, Jacksonville has the quarterback of the future and the present in Trevor Lawrence, right? We're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence a little bit more. Talk about the type of defense that Robert Saleh would bring. It's rooted in, the Pete Carroll cover 3, but he evolves with the league. So I don't think there's any issue with the defense being archaic or, being too Gus Bradley-ish, right? Or Todd Wash, right? I don't think that's an issue at all. I think he has grown. There's still roots there of cover 3, and cover 3 is still the most commonly run coverage in football. Like, it just is. But it's about being more multiple than that. He'll get into cover 1. He'll get into shell situations as well. And they do like to win with 4 up front, which I don't have a problem with. He will bring a little bit more heat than a Gus Bradley in certain situations. I think that he's pretty good at dialing things up. It's good defensive coordinator. It's not the most exotic, crazy defense, but if you get the pieces in place, which the Jaguars are close to having the pieces in place defensively, I think that Robert Saleh can make the most out of what you have. Probably need to work on the safety position here in Jacksonville, get more edge depth, and get obviously a corner opposite Tyson, but that's not a whole lot to do defensively. To in my opinion, get a defense that could be playing at a really high level under Robert Saleh. Going to talk about, offense and all that good stuff. But first, got to remind y'all about Underdog Fantasy. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DuvalDaily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick of entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Maybe you think that there's going to be fireworks in the divisional round. Maybe you think that there's going to be some points put up here coming up this upcoming weekend. Obviously, we've got the wild card round in the books. Vikings, tough one last night. But you decide. You make the call. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code DuvalDaily to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Maybe you think a running back's going to score a touchdown. You've got a hunch. Underdog has vulture protection, so they will rescue your pick'em in the event of your running back getting vultured. Must be 18 plus, 90 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 90 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy. If you're supporting them, you're supporting us. So, what is the plan with the offense? Is he capable of hiring like a really good offensive coordinator? I think his first offensive coordinator hire was pretty darn good. Michael LaFleur. Michael LaFleur got scapegoated. Is that Saleh's fault? I don't know, but obviously, they missed on their quarterback. They missed on Zach Wilson, and shout out to Frank Gore for making sure the Jets didn't get Trevor Lawrence, right? But I do think that Robert Saleh would be capable of hiring an offensive coordinator that could get the Jaguars offense modernized and moving in the right direction, more creative, less stagnant, pre-snap, post-snap. I think he does have that ability, but in the interview process with Shad Khan, Trent, whoever is a part of that, you have to figure that part out, right? You have to ask, what is the plan? You have to talk about, like, what are you looking for in an offensive coordinator? Do you have folks in mind, right? Mike LaFleur is currently coordinating the Rams. Would he take a job where he could be the play caller again under Robert Saleh? Probably not, but there's certainly other names that Robert Saleh has a history with that I think could end up making sense for the Jaguars as offensive coordinators. But it's not just like, can you hire one good offensive coordinator? It's also like, if you have the type of success that you're looking to have, can you replace them? Can you continuously churn and burn offensive coordinators that get hired to be head coaches if that ends up taking place, right? Because that's critical when you're talking about having a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. And it's not to say that Trevor Lawrence can't carry an offense by himself, because I think he's been doing that the last 3 years. But you want to have a better infrastructure in place than the Jaguars have had around Trevor Lawrence, right? And, talking about Trevor Lawrence, I think this offensive scheme has been awful the last 2 years, certainly. I think when you look at year one under Doug Peterson, I think that Jim Bob Cooter played a big part in that passing game and getting things opened up. Like, there's so many concepts they were running, specifically mesh, that just completely went out the playbook after Jim Bob left. But look, over the last 3 seasons, Trevor Lawrence is averaging 22 touchdown passes per 17 games, about 25 touchdowns total per 17 games, 11 interceptions per 17 games, over 4,000 passing yards per 17 games. He's the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. He's an athlete, live arm, good leader, hard worker. Honestly, like I said, I think that he has been the entire catalyst for the offense. And when Trevor Lawrence doesn't play close to perfect football, the offense cannot thrive. Get this man at least another receiver who does not drop the football, another receiver who can really play on the outside, to go along with Brian Thomas Jr., a better play caller, an actual functional running game. Like, what he's been doing the last 2 years, it's been without a running game at all. In 2022, they did have a little bit of a running game. It wasn't consistent, but they did better on the ground in 2022 than they have in 2023 and 2024. And so get this man a little bit of a running game, and I think he's going to roast defenses. It's going to look like 2022, beginning of 2023. Obviously, he needs to stay healthy, and I think that he can improve in terms of keeping himself out of harm's way. Like, the shoulder happened this year when he was trying to fight because, not a lot of the rest of the team was showing fight, but he was trying to fight and get extra yards, and he probably shouldn't have done that, and he learned from that. He's talked about that. So I think Trevor Lawrence is a very part of the reason this job is so attractive, and I also think as long as there's a slight uptick in terms of like the creativity and less stagnation on offense, a little bit better personnel, Trevor Lawrence is going to have a really successful future in Jacksonville. And you look at like his receivers, they have led the league in drops since he's been in the NFL. Very frustrating situation. Now, can he improve a little bit in certain areas? Yes. Like, he can hold on to the football better, fumble less. There's been situational moments, which again, I think are hard to blame on him because like it's usually just horrible play calling and horrible schematics and just like not a lot there and not a lot that makes sense. Right? But getting back to Robert Saleh, can he, whoever's in charge in Jacksonville, I mean, right now it's still Trent Baalke. I think that's the direction we're trending in. Can they get the job done? I don't know. I think that he would be an okay hire, but no one really knows if anyone will get the job done in Jacksonville. It's much easier said than done. Even though Shad Khan does provide tremendous infrastructure and support, doesn't meddle, it's difficult to be a successful coach in the NFL. It's like these couple little inflection points, and all of a sudden things are out of control. Just ask Doug. And things were in his control, but he decided to not make the changes necessary. I do believe that Robert Saleh is a realistic candidate. I don't think it's just like one of these nothing interviews that doesn't matter. I think he's a legitimate coaching candidate in this league, and I think he deserves probably to be a head coach again at some point. Although I don't think he's at the top of the list this year. Obviously, Mike Vrabel was at the top of the list for some teams, but Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Aaron Glenn, those are the guys highest on my list right now, bottom line. And I think Saleh would probably be fine, but ultimately I think this year he's going to be a defensive coordinator, whether that's in Jacksonville or somewhere else. And that's another benefit of, having him in for this head coaching interview. You can probably gauge a little bit about defensive coordinator, and he's already talking to the 49ers about that too. So I think that there's a good chance he could be the Jaguars defensive coordinator, but I don't think they're only interviewing him for defensive coordinator. I think they're really talking to him about head coach and what his plan would be, all that good stuff. I still personally think it's going to be Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen for the Jacksonville Jaguars, with Aaron Glenn as a candidate as well. I think those would be the top three. Look, I thought the Patriots had probably the best opening for Ben Johnson. I think the Jaguars have the best opening now. Like, they're in a much easier division to get competitive in than the Bears. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. They don't. I mean, I know Brady's there. That wouldn't get me that excited, quite personally, having Tom Brady breathing down your neck all the time. And Mark Davis, who's just an owner who clearly just showed he'll hire a whole new staff and then get rid of them in 1 year, which is concerning. Not a lot of talent throughout the roster. I mean, I know they have some defensive line talent, but I don't think the Raiders is an attractive job. I don't think New Orleans is a super attractive job. I don't think the Jets is an attractive job. Dallas, I mean, you do have an opportunity to go work for a storied franchise, a franchise that has Dak and CD and, Micah Parsons and some talent. But, I mean, I don't want to go work for Jerry Jones. No way. No way. So I think Jacksonville is the most attractive job, and then Chicago, and then I think it's a bunch of jobs that it's like, I don't know. But look, Robert Saleh interviewing with the Jacksonville Jaguars today. We'll see how it goes with him, and if there's any reports coming out afterwards about him maybe being the defensive coordinator for whoever they're going to hire, maybe him. I think he's a realistic coaching candidate. I think the Jaguars are taking this seriously. So really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Again, check out genjag.com/shop. Pick up some new Duval gear. 50% off everything in the store today. Need to get rid of a little inventory with this winter sale. Code Duval, that's DUUUVAL, 3 U's in Duval. genjag.com/shop. You can also become a channel member here on YouTube. Y'all have a good one.